I'd like to talk to you just a little bit about Key Leaders Conference and in your package. And first of all, I probably should have brought this to the work session, and that was my fault. We could have talked about it a little more in detail there before you voting on it tonight, and I just failed to do that. Because I've known about this conference for some time. Several, as you may know, we started our what I think has been a sustainable plan with the Sletsky Reform Center probably 8, maybe 9 years ago when we originally began our work with them. And it's varied, our activity is varied from year to year depending on what we were working on, but we've never stopped. And I think that's an important message because if we do stop or we say that that's not important work to do anymore, then the flavor of the month or this is a professional development of the month always comes into play. But we've been talking about engaging students, student engagement in the classroom for 8 or 9 years now. It's a big part of our climb. We still teach the 10 design qualities to every new teacher in our school district. We are still doing much of their work, and as you all know, I participate in the Superintendent's Network on a regular basis. This is an opportunity. Several years ago, Walter, I know you and Mickey attended. Was it just the two and myself?
Yeah.
Probably 2 or 3 years ago. Who?
Yeah, about 3 years ago.
Yeah. We went to Texas to attend Key Leaders, and really was a very meaningful time, and wish that we had really had all board members there. I will tell you that I budgeted money this year under professional development for leadership opportunities, and I think this board is not separate from that. When you stop growing professionally, I think that you model that for other people too. So everybody has a strong opinion about that. I think it's 2 of the 5 things in our professional code that we say we do, and I think that we need to invest in our own professional development as leaders as much as we do any other level of where we're at. This particular conference is in Charlotte, which is, you probably won't get one of their national conferences this close with no travel and no hotel expenses for the conference. It is intense. It will be physically and mentally very draining, or that's always been my experience with it. They will not walk out with best practices, so if you're looking for something to measure, I guess I should tell you vote against it. It is about thinking, and it's about thinking hard about what we do. This particular one is about telling our story. And I don't think we've ever been in a situation where we needed to tell our story and we've been under attack in public education like we are now. Quite honestly, if we hired a consultant to come in and help us work through that for 3 days, there's no way you could afford to get that kind of level of expertise. And I think it's timely. I think it's extremely needed. I think it is an important conference. It will be a small conference. There are 4 or 5 school districts that I know of that I network with that will be there. It's a good opportunity to talk with other school districts throughout the nation, not just in South Carolina, as we try to think about what school reform really looks like and what kind of stories we tell about our district. So,
you've already got to have this budget.
I have a leadership budget.
And so the only reason you're coming to the board is because there's a policy that says that when it's out of state, it has to be approved by the board.
That's correct. And
it's actually a lot closer than a lot of the in-state stuff. So.
Right, yeah. Exactly. And so my recommendation would be to take a team of folks from board and our associate superintendents and myself, because I believe we can actually develop a plan in a 3-day period of time by doing that. I don't think it requires everyone on the board to attend, but I think you have to have a team, and certainly you can make some decisions along those lines. They have already agreed to, if we bring a team, that they would waive Mr. Norwood because of his work schedule. He can't be there for the entire 3 days, so they would waive his and let him participate. So I think you need the board chair and the co-chair. I think if we're telling the story, Mr. Brown's done a lot of work with the legislative piece, and that's the story where we need to get out. And so I would at least recommend at that level. Beyond that, the workshop is on how do you blog and write and talk and all kinds of things. So you may want, one of the new members to participate in that.
Is there a possibility that people could go on their own if they were not a part of the budgeted amount, since it's just 25 miles away. What is registration fee?
The registration on the conference is expensive. It's on the standard bearers unit's about $1,400. So it would be difficult to go on your own.
Of course, we can all agree Bob needs a development.
Leave Bob alone.
But you need to think about it from the standpoint of having national folks who are experts in this area for over a 3-day intense period of time. This is not, and those are materials and those kind of things. It's books and pre-read, and it's not easy work. It's a class.
I think we all need continuing ed, and I think it would be good to learn to tell our story. I mean, I looked it up on the internet after you sent the thing out. We've got to get out to the public more. Some of us are trying. We all do need continuing ed. I'm very much in favor of that. And this sounds like a good one and a convenient thing.
And it's already budgeted, is that correct? Do we have just a little bit of discussion about it?
Yeah, I think we're going backwards somewhere on some of these discussions. That's my only problem with it. So I'd rather have a motion on the table in a second, and then we can move right into that. Is there a motion that we approve this recommendation?
Does it need to be more specific?
I'll
move that we send some people, but maybe we'll discuss how many and things like that before.
Do you have a number?
Well, my recommendation would be to send our board chair, co-chair, Mr. Brown, and one new member.
I'll move that.
Well, you can make the motion, but I would suggest that's not the issue for the board. The board is whether to allow the out-of-state trip.
Oh, there. Okay.
The number of people should be under the control of the superintendent, because that's where the budget is and the amount of money there for the whole year. And so, as a part of that position, I would think, since it's budgeted, we're not being asked to approve the money. We're just being asked to allow people to travel out of state for a conference. That's my interpretation of where we are, and somebody may disagree.
I think you're right, Jim. I think that the only motion is to allow out-of-state travel.
Do you want to reword that? You want to continue?
Yes,
that?
I think the move to allow the out-of-state travel for this continuing ed.
Is there a second?
Superintendent.
I'll second.
Okay, all right, now.
The comment's not relevant. I'd like to talk to you about some of the things we learned here. It sounds, and I have no question about the need for continuing education for all of it.
I think the board in particular.
I feel pretty strong, Jane, that this particular kind of learning is so much more intense than anything we can get in South Carolina. It's so different. School board conference is download of information. It's good. We need that. But this is really thinking, planning, and leading.
What I always, my only question about it was what I always thought about SLECT conferences, and I've been to at least 4,
Right.
is that they did a very good job at getting us started, and I think they did get us started under Dr. Bridges with the need for collaboration, the need for us working together. But I've always felt that it was like the framework without the bricks and mortar, and then we had to come back, and that's what we found with continuous assessment. That's what we found with the literacy program. Those were our bricks and mortar, and we didn't get that from SLECT.
And you're right. You're exactly right, and you won't get that on this one. That's why I said if you're looking for best practice or bricks and mortar, you won't get that from this conference.
Right.
And so you need to go knowing that I think it's the merge of both. I think it's we read and study all of the best, like the literacy and RTI, and you have to do those, but you also have to do this one step, always looking forward in that leadership piece.
Yeah,
and so you have to merge
telling our
those.
story. I think that's what we need perhaps more.
We talked about that at a board retreat.
Yes.
I think if we could get our story told, we could end up saving the district more money than we would in going again. That might be a little bit of a stretch, but I think over the long haul, it would be important.
My thoughts on this were the same as everybody else's when it comes to the budgeting and money and spending. My first thinking is it in the budget to begin with to make this expenditure? But we bought into this program, whether it be under Dr. Bridges first or not, and I think that our district has bought into it, and we certainly have used their model in our school district, and we've put off participating in this program since Randy's been here. I know Randy was trying to get me to go to Chicago or Texas or wherever it was. And it was always on a board meeting week. It was, even if it wasn't, it was, was some kind of expense or inconvenience that caused it not to happen. And there was somewhat of a justification not to take board members to this event because of those things. But when you buy into a program like this and you've committed a lot of hours to it over the years and still use some of their model, and it's in Charlotte, and you don't go, I think that says that's a negative. That says something very negative.
It's almost like you're abandoning it.
Yeah, and I think that it's important. Now, on the money, I would like to know the amount of money this district has saved by cutting back on the number of people we've sent to the school board convention over the last 5 years, maybe 6.
Yeah,
Something like that. I know that this may shock people when I say this, but there was a day when almost all of us went to the school board convention, and we haven't done that in many years, and rightfully so. We don't need to spend that kind of money on the convention. But this is, I think, different, and I will support the motion.
Bob, we were spending, about 3 years ago, we were spending around $3,000 to attend the FRN conference in Washington.
That's right, we stopped doing that too.
For one person. And
It's coming up again soon.
yeah, it's coming up again soon.
And we probably need to be there as much as we need to be selected.
I don't disagree, but
that's just not possible to do it all. So,
but that's a caution because it's in Washington, and
you have to get up there and back. You have to stay in a
you got to
hotel.
stay at the Hilton when you get there. And you got to fly.
5 people go.
I'm really talking about the 3 associates and myself, and then
7.
7.
no, I was talking about 3 to 4 board members.
7 to 8.
So that's fine. If it's in the budget, it's your budget. I mean, it's not a question.
It's partly your budget too. It's the board's budget and our budget.
You understand my point. It's not new expenditure.
No, exactly.
That's right.
We're going to, she asked for going to training, we're going in June, we didn't want to go for February, it's too far, too expensive in the area.
Yeah.
We're going to the June training.
And I think that this is an important thing too. When we looked at our restricted guidelines, that we continue to follow those. Sometimes when we talk about professional development, people get the idea that we're going to Charleston, or we're going to Hilton Head, or we're going to Washington, or somewhere fun. Charlotte is not exactly a great trip for 3 days for you to spend 3 days in a focused amount of time. So it is, I guess not, but I don't promise you a good time. I promise you a learning experience.
Anything else? Any other questions about this motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Let's have it. Thank you.